The picture around the Eagles' offensive coordinator search keeps getting more complicated, and the latest developments tell you a lot about how aggressive and at the same time restricted Philadelphia really is right now. Inside the building, this hasn't been a casual search for a play caller. It's been a process of pushing on doors across the league and seeing which ones actually open. And in the last few days, two important realities came into focus for Eagles fans. One door was flat out shut by a division rival, and another candidate disappeared before most people even knew he was in play. One of the most interesting angles comes from the Eagles' attempt to interview Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator Clayton Adams. According to reporting from NFL insider Jeremy Fowler, Philadelphia requested permission to speak with Adams for their open OC job and was denied by Dallas. On the surface, some fans might wonder why the Eagles even tried, but internally the logic made sense. Adams is not the primary play caller for the Cowboys. That role belongs to head coach Brian Schottenheimer, so there was at least a chance Dallas might allow him to explore a promotion. The Eagles took that shot. Dallas, being a division rival, exercised its full right to block it. What that really shows you is how competitive and political these searches become. The Cowboys weren't about to help Philadelphia upgrade its staff inside the NFC East. Even though Adams isn't calling plays, he's still a valued piece of Dallas's offensive structure. And the Eagles trying to pry him away sends a clear signal. Philly is looking for someone who already lives inside a productive offensive system. And there's a reason Adams drew interest. The Cowboys finished second in yards and seventh in points in the 2025 season. Their issues weren't on offense. They were tied more to an abysmal defense, which is now being rebuilt by former Eagles assistant Christian Parker, who was hired as Dallas's new defensive coordinator. From the Eagles' perspective, Adams was connected to a unit that consistently moved the ball and scored. Even without play-calling authority, that background matters when you're projecting what someone could become with more control. Now here's the part fans shouldn't ignore. Even though Dallas blocked the interview, the Eagles' interest itself is meaningful. It tells you Philadelphia is willing to look beyond obvious names and chase coaches who are still rising, not just established coordinators. It also means Adams now knows the Eagles tried to give him a path to a promotion. That doesn't change anything today, but it's something that can linger in future cycles if he ever becomes available again. So with Adams removed from the board, the search kept moving, and then another name quietly slipped away before the public even realized the Eagles were involved. The Eagles had interest in former Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith before he accepted the Ohio State offensive coordinator job. That came from NFL insider Diana Russini, who reported that Smith had been having conversations with both the Eagles and the Tennessee Titans, two teams with OC openings this offseason. It's not clear whether Philadelphia formally interviewed Smith, but what matters is that there was real dialogue. And this wasn't the first time the Eagles looked at him seriously. Back in January of 2021, when the Eagles were searching for a head coach, they interviewed Smith and were said at the time to be really impressed by him. That process eventually sent Smith to Atlanta instead, where he became head coach of the Falcons. Smith's Atlanta run didn't end the way anyone hoped. He went 7-10 in 3 straight seasons and was fired with a 21-30 overall record. After that, he spent 2 years as the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator. From there, instead of jumping back into the NFL OC carousel this cycle, he chose the college route, accepting the Ohio State offensive coordinator position to replace Brian Hartline, who left to become South Florida's new head coach after succeeding Chip Kelly. From the Eagles' side, whether Smith was the top option to replace Kevin Patullo or simply one of several targets, the result is the same. He's no longer available. And what makes this interesting for fans is the timing. Smith was in conversations before the public narrative around the Eagles' OC search even fully formed. That tells you Philadelphia has been working this quietly behind the scenes, long before names started circulating online. Put these two situations together, and you start to see the real story of the Eagles' offseason on offense. This isn't just about finding someone to design plays. It's about navigating league politics, timing, competition, and availability.
The Eagles pushed for Adams and got blocked by a rival. They explored Arthur Smith and lost him to college football before the process went public. That's not inactivity. That's movement that simply hasn't converted into a hire yet. It also shows you something else. the Eagles are not limiting themselves to one coaching archetype. Adams represents a modern NFL offensive infrastructure tied to efficiency and production. Smith represents a coach with head coaching experience, NFL coordinator background, and adaptability across systems. Those are very different profiles, but both drew interest from Philadelphia, which suggests the front office and coaching leadership are still shaping what they actually want the next Eagles offense to look like. For fans, the frustration comes from seeing names fall off the board, but the deeper takeaway is that the Eagles are actively testing the market, even when the market pushes back. Being denied permission by Dallas isn't a failure, it's a reminder of how aggressive you have to be to even get access to top assistants. Losing Smith to Ohio State isn't about being outbid, it's about timing and personal choice. And now the question becomes what this all means for the direction of the Eagles' offense moving forward. Are they prioritizing upside and modern structure like Adams represents, experience and system control like Smith brought, or something that blends both? The search continues, but the moves so far already reveal a lot about how Philadelphia is thinking behind closed doors. So from your perspective as a fan watching this unfold, what do you think the Eagles should prioritize most in their next offensive coordinator? Proven NFL experience, rising star upside, or a system that fits the current roster best? And that question really sits at the center of everything the Eagles are dealing with right now. Because when you strip away the rumors, the blocked interviews, and the names that vanish before the public even sees them, what's left is a franchise trying to protect its offensive identity while also evolving it. The failed pursuit of Clayton Adams already hinted at something important. Philadelphia wasn't just looking for a play designer, they were looking for someone tied to a productive ecosystem. Dallas finishing second in yards and seventh in points in 2025 matters because it shows structure, rhythm, and consistency. Even without being the primary play caller, Adams was inside a system that knew how to sustain drives and finish them. The Eagles trying to get access to that tells you they are studying how other top offenses are built, not just who is calling the plays on Sunday. But the Arthur Smith angle reveals a different layer. Smith isn't a projection candidate. He's someone who has already carried the weight of building offenses and running an entire organization as a head coach in Atlanta. Even though his Falcons' tenure ended with a 21-30 record, the Eagles' continued interest in him over multiple years shows they value his football mind more than just the final win-loss column. Then he goes to Ohio State instead, and suddenly the Eagles lose a candidate who could have brought both NFL and schematic authority into the building. So now the search is no longer about who is available. It's about what Philadelphia believes the offense should become next. Do they want someone molded inside a high-output NFL attack like Adams? Do they want a proven architect like Smith who understands roster management and system structure? Or do they pivot again toward a different type of coordinator entirely? What fans should understand is that this phase is usually invisible. Most searches don't fail loudly, they fail quietly. Teams push for people, get denied, lose candidates to timing, and only fragments leak out. The fact that we're seeing these fragments tells you the Eagles aren't standing still. They're circling the league, testing relationships, and trying to find the right balance between control, creativity, and fit. Another key part of this is what it says about the power structure in Philadelphia. An offensive coordinator in this building isn't just calling plays. He's working inside an organization that already has strong voices, expectations, and a clear vision of how things should operate. That alone can scare some candidates away and attract others. Adams would have stepped into a promotion situation. Smith would have stepped back into the NFL spotlight after a head coaching run. Both come with very different motivations, and both reflect how complex this job really is. And that's why fans shouldn't just ask who is the next OC, but what kind of Eagles offense do we want to watch? Do you want something built on efficiency and weekly production? Do you want something rooted in experience and authority? Or do you want someone who can adapt to the roster and grow with it over time? The Eagles already showed they're willing to knock on hard doors. Dallas slammed one shut. College football quietly pulled another option away. That doesn't stop the process, it sharpens it. Every failed angle clarifies what matters most when the real hire finally happens. Because when Philadelphia does land its next offensive coordinator, it won't just be about filling Kevin Patullo's spot. It will be about defining how the Eagles attack defenses, manage games, and evolve as a franchise going forward. Because even after the first waves of candidates come and go, the real tension in this search is still building inside the Eagles building. What we're watching isn't a rush to fill a vacancy, it's a recalibration of how this offense is supposed to function week after week in a league that keeps changing faster than most teams can keep up with. When Philadelphia reached out on Clayton Adams, that move quietly showed respect for infrastructure. The Cowboys' offense didn't just pile up yards by accident. Finishing second in yards and seventh in points in 2025 reflects preparation, sequencing, and an understanding of how to stress defenses over 4 quarters. Even if Adams wasn't the main voice on game day, he lived inside that process every single week. The Eagles trying to bring him in means they're studying how successful offenses organize themselves, not just who grabs the play sheet on Sunday. But when you flip back to Arthur Smith, you see a different type of curiosity from Philadelphia. Smith isn't just about concepts. He's about control. He's built staffs, handled locker rooms, managed quarterbacks, and adjusted schemes under pressure. The Eagles having interest in him before he ever went public with Ohio State shows they were thinking about leadership as much as play design. Losing him to the college game isn't just losing a name, it's losing a certain philosophy option. That's why this search feels longer and more layered than fans might expect. The Eagles aren't shopping off one shelf. They're walking through multiple aisles at once. They're balancing production, authority, adaptability, and fit with the roster and the power structure already in place. Every block request and every candidate who chooses another path forces the Eagles to get clearer about what actually matters most. And there's another subtle part here that fans should keep in mind. An offensive coordinator in Philadelphia isn't walking into a blank notebook. He's walking into expectations, personalities, and an identity that already exists. That can be attractive, but it can also be restrictive depending on the coach. Adams would have entered as a rising assistant looking for opportunity. Smith would have entered as a former head coach reclaiming NFL ground. Those are very different psychological fits, and the Eagles exploring both tells you they're still defining what kind of partnership they want, not just what scheme they want. So while the outside world sees names falling off the board, inside the NovaCare complex the process is probably becoming sharper, not weaker. Each miss teaches them something. Each blocked door narrows the profile. Each lost candidate forces the front office and coaching leadership to ask harder questions about tempo, creativity, authority, and evolution. At the end of this, whoever takes over isn't just installing plays. He's shaping how the Eagles control games, respond to adversity, and stay competitive in a league where defensive coordinators adjust faster than ever. That's why patience here matters more than panic, because this search is quietly becoming a mirror of where the Eagles believe they are as a franchise right now. When a team is rebuilding, it looks for teachers. When a team is chasing consistency, it looks for structure. And when a team believes its window is still open, it looks for someone who can maximize what's already in the room instead of starting from zero. That's why the Adams and Smith situations matter beyond the surface. They weren't random targets. They represented two different ways of thinking about the offense. Adams represented immersion in a system that already produced at a high level. Smith represented command, experience, and the ability to carry responsibility across an entire unit. The Eagles touching both ends of that spectrum tells you they're still fine-tuning the philosophy of what comes next. And here's where fans sometimes miss the bigger picture. An offensive coordinator isn't hired in isolation. He's hired to coexist with a head coach, a front office vision, and a locker room culture that already exists. The Eagles aren't just asking, can you design plays? They're asking, can you function inside our structure, with our expectations, with our timeline? That's why some candidates never make it far, and others never even begin.